Hey everybody, how are we doing?
Hey bud, how are you?
What's up? Yeah, good man. How are you?
I'm all right. I'm walking down A6 somewhere. I'm doing 2 days of training refresh for the guys in Upminster.
Awesome.
Me.
Yeah,
But I'm
I
late
like your glasses.
because the trains are shit. Say?
I like your glasses.
Thank you. I need to change them. I'm gonna use Brewdog's whatever insurance to pay for it. Right. Dia, I need to find the bar. So I will unmute myself and
Sure.
I'll follow you as you go. If you need anything, I'll be here.
Yeah,
My earpods. So just give us a shout.
easy done, pal.
Nice to see you.
How is everybody? Everyone's very camera off and muted at the moment.
I'm good, yeah. Got a couple more CRCs, so I've got a few more staff almost passed up, ready to go, so it's looking good.
Awesome. Very good. There's a lot of people on. This is great, everyone.
Yeah, I'm doing all right. I'm just opening up a bar just now, so I probably won't be chatting too much.
Sounds cool.
But here and listening, and I'll jump in if needed.
Do what you got to do. The whole session is going to be recorded. So if for whatever reason anyone on the call today has to duck off, that's totally fine. If anyone wants to watch it again, then that's cool too. It'll be uploaded to the Guide Dog Cloud throughout the week. What I'd really love is for anyone who can to turn their camera on just so I can see you. Keep yourselves muted though. Awesome, thanks guys. Beautiful, I'm just gonna mute people. That's fine if you can't put your camera on, everyone. I totally understand, that is okay. All right, we might just wait for a couple more minutes before we get started. Thank you all so much for jumping on. I know it's reasonably early in the morning for most of you, so I really appreciate it. For us, it's about 8 o'clock at night in Brisbane. It's actually storming massively at the moment. Beautiful. All right, guys, we might get started. I'm just gonna take a photo of the people who are on the call at the moment.
Just FYI, I've moved my CCTV monitor, so if you think I'm just staring off into the distance the whole time, just keep an eye.
You're watching what's going on in the bar. Totally fine, Court.
Keep them honest.
There's so many people. This is awesome, guys. All right, let's jump in. That's enough of me just blathering on. Glorious. Can everyone see my deck? Give me a thumbs up if you can. Glorious. All righty, everybody. Welcome to the Guide Dog Development Session number 2. For those of you who were on the one we did many moons ago on Knowing Your Audience, welcome back. For those of you who haven't watched that one, it's available on the cloud, just as this one will be after the session. this is something we really want to get to gather momentum this year, because I think it's super important and super useful for you as trainers to be upskilled. I know that it's something that as a trainer I really value, and I hope you guys feel the same. So just a little bit of housekeeping. Anyone who can, keep your cameras turned on. It's okay if you can't, and keep yourselves muted if at all possible. The session is going to be recorded. For anyone watching this recording at home, welcome. Thank you for joining. As the topic may suggest, there's going to be a fair amount of questioning throughout this session. But however, if you do have a question that you want to ask, just unmute yourself, pop it in the chat box. I can't see the chat box at the moment, so if anything gets said in there, if someone could just unmute themselves and let me know to check it, that would be amazing. Yeah, beautiful. Welcome. Today's session is going to be surrounded around effective questioning techniques. Let's go through the objectives now, just to give you an idea of what you hopefully will have learned by the end of the session. So I'd like each and every one of you to be able to articulate in your own words why effective questioning is important. I'd like you to correctly match each question type we cover with its definition, ideally without the use of notes. I'd love you to know which questioning technique is useful to use in different situations. A lot of this is context dependent. And I'd also love for you to be able to put forward your own examples of different types of question. So just a quick signpost of what today's session will look like. To start with, we're going to talk about why effective questioning is important. We're going to go through 5 different types of questioning technique, talking about when you would use each, why you would use them, and also some sample questions. That's the meat of the sandwich. That really is all of the theory or content that we're going to be covering today. After that, we're going to be doing a couple of little activities. Then we'll do a recap. We'll talk about next steps, so how you can integrate this into your training as a guide dog. Then we're going to review the objectives at the end, just to make sure we've ticked all the boxes, everyone's happy, everyone's comfortable. So I'm just going to ask a question out to the group. Anyone can answer this. If you feel the desire to jump on the mic, please do. Why do you think effective questioning is one of the most important tools you can have as a trainer on your belt?
More efficient. If you ask the right questions the right way, you get your answers, like better answers, more useful answers a lot faster.
Totally. You get down into the nitty gritty. Absolutely. Can anyone tell me what else effective questioning could achieve?
It also creates a better engagement with your team, allowing them to feel valued and like they actually have an input.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a massive, massive part of it. Any other suggestions before we go through it?
It makes sure that everyone's got the information.
Yeah,
like understood
definitely.
It.
Yeah, so it can be used as an assessment technique as well as a trainer. So it can be used as a learning device and an assessment device, which is super, super useful. So just to break that down a little bit more. So effective questioning is also really important as a learning device because it gets your crew or your learners thinking about the topic in a little bit more of a deeper way. If you ask them the right questions, that's going to get those gears ticking inside their heads. It also, so having to take part in that discussion or offer up answers allows them, it's sort of the difference between hearing information and understanding it. So it promotes that higher order thinking. The next thing is that sort of understanding if the information is being taken in. So it gives you immediate feedback as a trainer. We all know that you've got to be flexible as a trainer. You've got to be ready to turn on a dime and go in a different direction. Effective questioning gives you that feedback as a trainer to know if you need to go over certain material or approach things in a slightly different way. Lastly, promoting group discussion and group work. So we all know that in any session we run, there's going to be more vocal and more quiet members of the team. Asking questions in the right way can make sure that the entire room is warmed up and is taking part and is engaging not only with you as a trainer, not only with the learning material, but also with each other. So it's effective questioning really is, it's such a good, brilliant skill to have as a trainer. I've got one more question for you before we dive into the main content. When we ask a question, do we want our learners to already know the answer? What do you think?
I think it
No,
depends on what it is.
because
Depends what it
Sorry, okay.
is. What was the other one?
I was going to say, not necessarily. There's, rhetorical questions or questions that are like getting them to start thinking about a thing that they might not have considered.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, there could definitely be those big overarching things just to get the gears rolling, in which case they might not know the answer already. If we're asking something specific or asking something to start a discussion, then yeah, I guess we kind of do want our learners to know the answer. I guess there's a few different reasons for this. And again, it's very context dependent. But as a learner, I'm sure you guys will all know that if you get asked a question at the beginning of a session and you've got absolutely no idea what the answer is, you can get really overwhelmed really quickly. And if you get overwhelmed with that content, it's really easy to just switch off and stop paying attention. Feeling that sense of achievement of going, oh yeah, I knew that answer, or that answer was in reach. I kind of got the idea behind that. That's really good for your learner's sense of achievement, and it'll help warm them up. And also, yes, because it helps their engagement. They can start talking about it and discussing it as a group. Beautiful. All right. Knowing which sort of question to ask and when is almost a little bit of an art form. It's something that it's a skill that you can develop, and it does take practice. I can guarantee you that once you start practicing the stuff we're talking about today, you're going to see a tangible result or a tangible change in your training sessions. You're going to notice you've got more engaged staff. Your sessions themselves will be more effective. But yeah, it does take practice to know which type of question to put in a training session and why. So let's get into it. We're going to be talking about 5 different types of questioning today: overhead, relay, PPP, reflect, and reverse. 3 of these techniques are teacher-led questioning types. So these are going to be where you have the most control as a teacher, and that's overhead, relay, and PPP. Reflect and reverse, on the other hand, are more sort of techniques on how you respond to questions that get asked of you as a trainer. So you have less control over those. You only have control in the way that you answer the question, in a way. Time to break it down. Would anyone like to hazard a guess? And again, this is right at the beginning of the session, so it's okay if you don't know the answer already. Would anyone like to hazard a guess as to how this type of questioning works?
Is overhead by chance, is it like a broad overarching question to get a gauge of where the group is at?
Yeah, I can't see you, but was that Jackie?
Pardon?
Yeah, it was you, wasn't it? Anyway, yes, absolutely. You got it, mate. So overhead, it's like you're throwing a ball over the heads of the learners and you're waiting for someone to catch it. You pose the question to the whole group. You don't target anyone specifically, and you wait for a volunteer to answer. Also, it took me so long to get the animation in this slideshow to work, and I'm so proud of it. So this technique is important to be used during the learning phase. What could some of the benefits be to using this in the beginning phase of a session? I just gave you an answer, sorry.
Yeah, you can figure out who are the quiet people and who are the speakers, and then you can sort of start targeting more of the quiet people sort of later on.
Totally. Yeah, it allows you to establish who the chatty members of the group are. So just a little bit of a meta-analysis here. In this session, I can tell that and I'm guessing that was ranks. Again, I couldn't see you, mate, but I could tell that Jackie, Tom, Ricky, Courtney, and ranks are super engaged, super chatty members of the group. That's a great tool for you as a trainer, because if it means down the line you need to call upon people to give answers and you're worried about it, you know that you could ask them specifically and be okay. Is it scary when a teacher asks an overhead question? How do you feel as a trainer, as a learner?
If you felt engaged, then you're fine. Whereas if you've been caught off guard, it's a total like, oh God, what's going on?
Yeah, definitely. We're going to come back to that point. I think because overhead's not specifically targeted at a particular person, it's not as threatening as one that we're going to come across a little bit later on. But it also promotes this discussion. It allows them to get talking. And as we said, it establishes the chatty learners in the group. I'm just going to try and move this because I can't see. There we go. Good. Now, just to give you guys a little bit of and you've probably had your own experiences of this as a trainer, I'm going to give you a bit of an example of where overhead questions can go wrong. So I'm based at Dog Tap Brisbane, and last year I was running a session basically on going the extra mile for guests. And right at the very beginning of the session, I asked, what is the meaning of hospitality? And my poor Dog Tap staff, it was 9 o'clock on a Monday morning. They were sitting there, they weren't caffeinated, and it was just, they had no context into what this training session was going to be about. And I got crickets. And that's terrifying as a trainer. This sort of question really scares me, because what if no one answers? And I think it's really important that the questions that you ask in this style of question can't be too broad. But because they're happening during the learning phase, it's important for them not to be too specific on things that you're going to cover during the session as well. It's really good to establish the knowledge that the group already has. Yeah, so you don't want it to be too broad and you don't want it to be too specific. Now, just a little individual activity here. Can everyone take a minute, have a bit of a think, and just write down for me an example of an overhead question that you might ask. This can be in any context. It can be for any sort of training session. I just want you to write down an example of an overhead. This can either be also in the chat box, or it can just be on paper in front of you.
Sorry, I had kitchen in my ear. What are we writing?
I want you to write me an example of an overhead question. Patty, how old is beer? What is beer? Very good. I'll give you guys just a little bit more time to do that, and then we'll move on to the next type of question. All right. Can you give me a thumbs up when you're ready to move on to the next one? Ah. Yeah, these are really good, guys. All right, a few more seconds and then we'll move on to the next type of question. Okie dokie. I'm going to ask 3 people the same question in turn. A little bit of word association here. So, Marnie, can you please unmute yourself and tell me, what do you think of when you hear the word relay?
Relay, like sort of passing on the baton, I guess. Sort of.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm going to ask the same question to Mia. Can you tell me what you think of when you hear the word relay? Miyasuta, are you there? Okay, let's ask somebody else. Ed Taylor, can you please tell me what you think of when you hear the word relay?
Sorry, unmuting. I would say it would be something and then passing it on to someone else.
Yeah, definitely. Again, like a baton. So you guys both absolutely hit the nail on the head. Like a baton, the trainer passes the question around to different learners in turn. When using this technique as a trainer, it's important to remember to start with a different person each time so that you can get around as many members of the group as possible if you're asking a few of these types of questions in a session. Can anyone tell me, now there's a few different answers for this. What sort of information can you establish by using a relay question? What sort of questions can you ask with a relay question?
I would say stuff that maybe has multiple different answers or different aspects, so
Yeah.
that one person doesn't say, like, for instance, here you ask two people what relay means, and there's only kind of a small definition for relay. Whereas if it's a more kind of general question, different people have different ideas of what the answer could be.
Totally. So an example for that could be, what are some flavors that I might be getting from hops? You tell me, then you tell me, then you tell me. Yeah, so when there's more than one answer, definitely. Would anyone else like to, does anyone else have any thoughts about when you could use this type of question?
If you're
Additionally-
asking about people's, oh, sorry.
No, go on.
Asking about people's experiences about something. So like more like, you know, tell us about a time when you had good or bad service, for example.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. More than one experiences, or even experience in the subject matter as well. What's one thing you know about this topic already, and pass it around the group and see what they say. Ricky, were you going to say something?
That was pretty much it. It was when you have a different experience group, you can use it to relay and develop the discussion. It's feeding off each other's experience levels.
Yeah, definitely. There's a couple of other examples of when you might use a relay question as well. So you might use it at the beginning of a session. Actually, I've got these on here, to ask them why they think the session is going to be beneficial. You could also ask that at the end, why was the session beneficial? Establishes people's experience, and to establish if there's multiple answers to the question, or if there's steps to the answers of the question as well. And feedback, which kind of ties into session benefits as well. Beautiful. Okay, now, same activity as we did before. I want everyone to just take a moment, again, can be in the chat box or can be in your own notes. Give me an example of a relay question. Oh yeah, these are good. Oh, they're coming in hard and fast. How would you have dealt with this situation? What goes into the beer making process? Yeah, when tasting a beer, what notes are you getting? Aditya, that's perfect. What's a good experience you've had in hospitality? Same thing. Yeah, awesome. Awesome work, everybody. When we think of malts, what flavors do we get? Yeah, totally. I'll give you guys another few seconds to just write down your answers, and then we're going to move on to the next type of question. What could I do to make your learning experience easier? Good one. Maybe I should be asking all of you that. Beauty. All right, everyone. We might move on to the next type of questioning now. What's your favorite beer? Yeah, classic. Alrighty, so the last type of question that we're in control of as trainers, or the last type of questioning technique rather, is PPP. Now, has anyone come across this before? Would anyone like to hazard a guess as to what it stands for?
Does it stand for post pause pick? by any
Yes,
chance? Yeah.
it does. The wording we're using in this presentation today is a little bit different, pose, pause, person, but the idea is essentially the same. So pose, pause, person is when you pose a question to the whole group. You pause for a second, and then you nominate one learner by name to answer the question. It's important to put the name after you've asked the question. Can anyone tell me what the difference would be? For example, if I was to say, Courtney, what does PPP stand for? And I'm going to ask you a question. What does PPP stand for? Courtney, what's the answer? Can anyone tell me the difference between those two?
You feel less. You feel less. You're not confronted when you ask a question, then name a person to answer.
Aditya, I'm so sorry. There's a lot of background noise, my friend. I can't hear you.
I just feel like you have more time to prepare for like for the people who answer. Like if you pick the name, I always feel like it's nervous. You don't think ahead, but like when you have the question, you kind of think with the question. But even though it's not your name, you have the answer for the question. Really,
Fannin, you are spot on both counts. First of all, it gives everybody a chance to think about. It gives the responder a chance to think about the answer to the question. But yeah, also it still engages the entire group. So if I was to ask you a question directly, everyone else would be able to tune out because it's not relevant to what they're doing at the time. Whereas pose, pause, person, make sure that everyone's thinking about an answer because they might get picked, right? The length of time that you give to your learners will depend on the complexity of the question that you've asked, or it will depend upon the person you're picking and their level of knowledge. I'm going to ask someone specific to answer this next question. See what I did there? How does PPP questioning make you feel? Aurelian, can you answer me, please? Don't forget to unmute yourself.
Say it again, please.
I asked you, if I ask you a PPP question, how do you feel as a learner?
Forgot the name. Implied, not implied, but
Does it make you feel nervous that I'm going to ask you to answer?
somewhat, yeah.
Yeah. It can be really intimidating, this style of question, both for you as a trainer and for the person that you're picking on. You don't want to single anyone out and point out that they don't know the information. So yeah, the timing of this is really important. So thinking about the length of a session, like an overall session, when during the session do you think you would introduce PPP questioning?
Would it be sort of like right near the end to establish what you've already got?
Yeah, absolutely. You're not asking them to recount for you anything that they haven't already learned in that session. Absolutely. It's definitely better to have it during the recap. So after that initial learning phase, and where appropriate as well during the actual practice. Was someone going to say something?
Could it not be used around about halfway to ensure you've still got engagement from the entire team?
Yeah, absolutely. But I would say that with this, you would only want to question about content that you've already covered in the session. But yeah, absolutely. What sort of learners would you address your PPP questions to? This is an overhead question anyone can answer.
The less chatty ones, to give people who haven't spoken already a chance to contribute.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone who's been sitting staring at their phone for the whole thing, or anyone who has looked like they were too nervous to contribute, this is a good way of getting them to finally open up and start talking. And because you're doing information, because you're asking questions about information that they've already learned, they'll get that sense of achievement when they can prove to you that they've been paying attention. Okay, same thing again. Does everybody want to write down for me an example of a PPP question? Yeah, what is the IBU of a particular beer? Who can answer an overhead question? What are the 1516 beer purity laws? What beer style does X fall under? What have you learnt from this session? Could you tell me about our headliners? What are the hops in this particular beer? Can you remember what the allergen process is? Pause, Eloise. Thanks for calling me out, Lauren. What is the style of beer X? Yeah. All right, everyone. So that is our 3 trainer-led types of questioning. The next 2 types that we're going to cover are our sort of responding techniques to when a learner asks you a question. We're not going to do as much content on them, but we're going to go over them anyway. So, where am I? Yeah, the first one of the 2 that we're going to talk about is reverse. So this is when a learner asks a question, the teacher thinks about it, and then returns it directly back to that learner. The way I remember this one is just think about an Uno reverse card. Someone asks you a question, you just flip it and reverse it. You send it straight back to them. But yeah, you might have to rephrase the question, or you might want to add some sort of a clue as to what the answer might be. What's the benefit of responding to a question like this?
Would it be to encourage that individual's like critical thinking on the subject?
Yeah, definitely. To get them to think a little bit deeper about it. If you think that person has the knowledge, you just need them to dig a little bit deeper and find the answer. And that's great as a learner. If you realize that you knew the answer to your question all along, you just had to think about it in a different way. That again gives you a really massive sense of achievement as a learner. Yeah, helps build learner confidence and encourages the learners to think for themselves. The next one is reflect. And this is kind of similar, I guess, to reverse with just a subtle difference. I think it's actually probably worth me noting, I should have done this at the beginning of the last slide. Of course, when a learner asks a question, you can just answer the question, but this is if you want to use these techniques, it's just an extra option for you as a trainer. So reflect. A question from the learner is posed to the trainer thinks about it a little bit and then opens it up to the entire group or opens it up to a more experienced learner in the group. Now, when do you think this is going to be most useful for you as a trainer?
When,
sorry,
Aaron, you go first.
I was literally going to say pretty much the same aspect as the other gentleman who's going to say something. It's, yeah, it gives you a fraction period to engage yourself, to be like, okay, I'm not sure what to do right now, but I want to make sure that I can deliver something in a second.
Yeah, to buy you a little bit of time. Absolutely. And Ricky, were you going to say something as well?
Yeah, pretty much exactly the same.
Yeah, to buy you
Also probably
thinking
want to
time.
use it towards the end of the session when you feel like the learners have the knowledge to be able to answer the question.
Yeah, absolutely, Grace. Totally. It's also really good when you just don't know the answer. If someone asks you a really complicated question and you've got someone who's super experienced in the room, they can help you out with that. Yeah, I do this all the time, as Courtney and Jackie will have definitely seen.
I feel like it's also like from our induction training sessions and stuff like that, it gets everyone in the group used to asking each other for help on things too, rather than it just being like, oh, only the god of training is allowed to teach us, nobody else may tell us anything.
Yeah, totally. It's really good for group discussion and teamwork. Beauty. Thanks, guys. Guess what? That's the meat in our sandwich done. That is all of the content. One last little note about reflect and reverse questions. It's really important not to use them too frequently because it can make you seem a little bit wishy-washy as a trainer if every time someone asks you a question, you just throw it back at them or throw it out to the group. So it's kind of, it takes practice to be able to balance this, to find that line. We're going to play a couple of games now. For one of them, we're going to try something that we haven't tried on the Zoom call before, so it might end up in a complete shambles, but let's see how we go. The first one is nice and simple. I'm going to get you guys to match these definitions to the headings. So I'm going to go through and read out the definition, and then I'd like you all to write in the chat box number 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. So where has my chat box gone? Sorry, everybody. There we go. Okie dokie. So the trainer asks a question to the group, briefly pauses, then nominates one learner by name to answer. Which type of question do we think this is? 3, PPP. Absolutely, everyone. Well done. Next one. The trainer poses a question to the whole group and then waits for a volunteer to answer. You're all over it. Awesome, guys. Overhead. Yeah, absolutely. Number 3. Oh, sorry, not number 3. Letter C. A question from the learner to the trainer, from the learner to the trainer, is either opened up to the rest of the group or to an experienced learner. Reflect. Yeah. To remember the difference between reflect and reverse, like I said, reverse I like to remember an Uno card. Reflect I like to imagine just holding up a massive mirror and showing it back to the whole group. Letter D, like a baton, the trainer passes the question around to different learners in turn. Number 2. Gorgeous. All right. And lucky last, which is obviously going to be super difficult for everybody. Letter E, a question from the learner to the trainer is returned to the learner rephrased. Is reverse. Awesome. Great stuff, everyone. Now, for this next activity, this is the one that we haven't tried before in a Zoom call, and I'm very nervous about how it's going to go. What you've got on the screen in front of you is a timeline of a basic teaching session. So you've got the learning phase, then you've got the recap phase, and then you've got your little post-session feedback, whether that be part of the session or not. Now, obviously context dependent, this is going to look different depending on what it is that you're training, but let's just work with this one for now. What I'm going to do is put up an example of a question, and I want you to mark for me on this timeline where you think it sits. Now, to do that, I believe if you put your cursor right up to the very top of the screen or right down to the very bottom of the screen, depending on your computer, you should have a button that says View Options.
Can you say that again? What option it is?
It should say View Options. Hey, glorious. And then, yeah, the next thing you want to do is to click Annotate. I can see that quite a lot of you have figured it out. I could just watch this for an hour. This is great.
On the
All
clock,
right.
especially.
Yeah. How's everyone going finding that button? It's okay if you can't, just anyone who has the ability to do it, I would like them to do this. Oh, Grace, that's a nice neat X. Okay, everyone. So I'm going to, can I get everyone to just erase what they've put on so far? I can't move that. Yes, I can. Great. Awesome. I'm going to put a sample question up on the screen. I want you to mark for me on this timeline where you think it should go. What are the 4 main ingredients in beer? As an overhead question. This is so good. I think you guys have all got the gist. It's in the learning phase. All right, if everyone can clear their marks. This is so fun. Oh, I hope you guys are having as much fun with this as I am. All right, next one. A PPP question. In brewing, what are the benefits of using malted barley over other grains? Picking on someone specific, I've written the name Alex. Yeah, beautiful. In the recap phase. Glorious. I'll get you to clear your marks again for me, everyone. This next one's pretty simple. Relay to get feedback. Can everyone in the circle tell me your thoughts on this session we've just had? Nice. Alrighty. Next one, relay to confirm learning. What is something you've learned about beer during this session? John. And then Paul, what is something you've learned about beer during this session? George, what is something you've learned about beer during this session? Sorry, Ringo, I'm not going to ask you. Awesome, guys. And lucky last, relay to establish prior learning. Tell me one thing you know about this topic already. Ben, Susie, and Andre. Great. Awesome. Now, if everybody can clear all of the marks that they've put on the screen for me. Anyone who likes a nice visual, I think this screen just in general is good to kind of have in the back of your mind, especially when we talk about our next steps, which we're going to cover in a little while. I'm now going to do a bit of a recap. And to do this, I'm going to be using, I'm going to be picking someone specifically to answer these questions. So I've got the chat box up. So if for some reason you can't unmute your mic and I pick you to respond, feel free to just put it in the chat. So what sort of question is this? And I'm going to ask Jared Cameron. Jared, are you there? No responses from Jared, so we'll move on to someone else. Lauren Penfold, can you please tell me what sort of question this is?
The initial overhead question?
Almost, except I'm targeting someone specifically to answer my question. So what sort would it be?
PPP.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to pick on someone else now. What are the 3 question techniques that the trainer is in control of? Leon Hofstede, can you please answer this one for me?
The trainer is in control of the relay, the PPP, and the overhead question.
Perfect. Yeah, ideal. When should we use a relay question during training? Now, there's a few different answers for this. I'm going to ask Nicholas Sard to answer this one, please. Oh, sorry, I'll put it on the screen.
Sorry, will you mind repeating that, please?
Yes. When should we use a relay question during training?
I didn't got that
That's okay.
very clear. That's the only thing I didn't understand the relay. Not my
That's all right.
main language, so I couldn't get it quite properly.
That's okay, Nicholas. I might open it up to the group. Would anyone like to tell me when I might use a relay question?
Yeah, usually at the beginning, just to sort of establish the experiences of your learners.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely one way we could use it, Ranks. Thank you, mate. Would anyone like to offer up a different type of relay question and where we might use that?
When
You could also
there's more than one
oh,
answer.
sorry.
Yeah, Grace, when there's more than one answer. And Rowan, I didn't catch what you said, mate.
I
Can you
was
say
just
that
going to say that you could use it at the end to assess whether the session was beneficial.
Yeah. So anytime, I suppose, is the full answer for the question, but all of the examples you gave me were perfect. My next one, and I'm going to pick on someone to give me the answer for this. What does PPP stand for? Dirk, would you be able to answer this one, please?
Hi. Yeah, it's pose, pause, and person.
Yeah, perfect. Next question. What is the difference between a reverse question and a reflect question? And I'm going to ask Elle Brennan. No answer from Elle? Oh, no, sorry, you answered in the chat. What is the difference between a reverse question and a reflect question? Trainer directs question specific to a specific learner in reverse. Yeah, absolutely. And in reflect, yeah, open to anyone. Absolutely. Thank you, Elle. One last recap question, everybody. When would you use a PPP question? When in the broad scope of a training session would you use it? I'm going to ask Laurie to answer this question, please. Laurie, are you there? I might open it up to the group.
No, sorry.
Oh, there you
I
are.
am. You'd use it towards the end of the session to test knowledge?
Yeah, once the learning's taken place, absolutely. Alrighty, guys, that's the recap. That's all of the content. I've just got a couple more things for us to do before the end of the session, but I just want to open it up. Do any of you have any questions at this point? Everyone's okay for now? Beautiful. I want you to take a little moment of just a little bit of self-reflection for me now, guys. So on your notes, either on your phone or if you've got a piece of paper in front of you, I want you to write down how confident you'd feel or how much experience you've had using these different types of questions as a trainer already. And this is just for your reference. You don't have to tell me, this is just for you. So just take a minute to do this little activity. Once you're done, can I get you to just put a little thumbs up in the chat? We've got about 10 people. Awesome. I think that's most people, guys. Let's Just have a quick look. If you haven't quite finished it yet, just come back to this after the session. I want you to fill this out because we're going to talk about next steps. So this is how I want you to go about putting this into practice in your role as a guide dog. So for the first one, I want you to think about planning. When you get ready to do your February training session with your crew, no matter what it is, or next time you have the opportunity to do a training session, I want you to specifically plan to ask at least your 3 types of training questioning technique that you're in control of as a trainer. If you're going off a session that's already written, I'd like you to go through and identify the different questions and figure out what sort of questioning technique they're using, and make sure you're doing at least 1 question from each technique in that session. Because the next step is to practice. When you're running that session, I want you to kind of keep a mental note of those questions that you're going to go through, how they go, how the crew responds to them, and just keep practicing that. The more you can practice this, the better you're going to get. After that, I want you to then reflect if the questions fell flat, what were some things you could have done as a trainer to maybe ask them in a different way? When you were doing PPP questioning, did you pause? Do you feel like you paused for long enough? Do you feel like you targeted a person? Targeted is a really harsh word and I don't really like it, but did you feel like you asked someone to respond to the question who was able to answer? All these sorts of things. I'd love you to reflect on your practice after you've tried it in a training session. Then in a few months, after you've had a few different training sessions with your crew, I'd love you to come back to the rating that you gave yourself out of 5 for those different question types. And I want you to see if your confidence has grown and if you feel a little bit more capable of introducing effective questioning into your session. Alrighty. Right before we wrap up, does anyone have any questions about anything? I know I did this just before, but just in case. Everyone is okay? Beauty, guys. All right. So we're down to the second last slide, everyone. I just want us to go through the objectives again, and I want you to kind of gauge for yourself if you feel like we've covered them. So articulate in your own words why questioning technique is important. Correctly match each question type to its definition without the use of notes. Know which questioning technique to use in different situations, and be able to put forward examples of different types of question. Now, to assess this, we've put together a quiz. For anyone watching this from a managed site, I want you to go to that QR code straight after this call. In fact, I've got the link, which I'll put in the, I need to move that. I can't move it. Move, please. This. Sorry, guys, 2 seconds. Having technical difficulties. Beautiful. There it is. So that is the quiz link. For anyone watching this recording at home, you've got to do this quiz to be able to get your guide dog uplift. This is just for managed site guide dogs. If you've got any franchise, I can see we've got a few franchise guys on the call. You don't have to worry about this. But yeah, I need everyone to fill out that quiz. You need to have it done by the time we get to the Twilight Bark next Tuesday. It only takes 5 minutes. I highly recommend doing it straight after the call today. So take down that code or scan that QR code now if you can. And the last thing is, we'd love to hear your feedback, everyone. If there's a specific guide dog development session that you'd like to see run, if there's a topic that you've always wanted to know a little bit more about, or if there's a tool that you think would be really useful to you as a trainer that we could go into in one of these sessions, fill in that feedback form. Let us know how you thought today was. Let us know how what else you'd like to see. Also, if you have any questions about anything, after the fact, feel free to email retail training info@brewdog.com. Or if you have a question for me specifically, that's totally fine as well. I've popped my email address up on the screen. And I just, so that everyone has this as well, the feedback link is in the chat now. Alrighty, that's it from me, everyone. Thank you so much for attending. If you need anything, just send me an email.
Thanks, Elle.
Thanks, guys. See you
Thank
all
you
at the
very
Twilight
much.
Bark next week. No worries at all.
Thank you.
That's
Thank
okay.
you.
No worries, guys. Thanks for coming.
You stay there and wait for all your fans to farewell you, Eloise.
Yeah.
Impatiently awaiting your what is it? Your comeback?
Yeah.
Encore, that's the word.
You guys want more slides? I'll put more slides up.
A new spreadsheet. Do you want a spreadsheet?
No, that's awesome, everyone. All right, I'm going to end the call now. I'll see you all soon. Bye.